So I'm going to kind of roll off this three-parter. I'm going to try and stretch my infields out as much as I possibly can. And I'm going to do this three-part series on how to actually warm up with putting yourself out there, to cold approach and to actually start socializing with people out and about. Now, cold approaching, for those who are maybe new to the concept, is essentially just the ability to go up and talk to a complete stranger. Okay, it's not necessarily a technical term, but it is certainly becoming more and more popular in the psychology scene of what it means to actually speak to a stranger. It's no different really to the concept of cold calling, where, you know, you're calling up someone to strike a conversation with them and essentially kind of like sell yourself in that aspect. But for cold approaching, as a skill to become more sociable, to become more confident, and certainly to challenge those limiting beliefs that you might have about yourself, it really is a fantastic thing to be using. And it's why I'm a huge advocate of it, and why I do want other guys to utilize it and get better, because it does fast track your confidence. Now, it doesn't mean though that you necessarily have to be the kind of guy to be walking around on the street all the time, but it certainly does get you to where you want to be faster, and why it's always great to just hone the skill, get really good at it, and then move on. Really what guys need to be focusing on is just the starting point. How to actually put yourself into the situation first, get comfortable with it, and then after that you can start thinking about what kind of conversations can I have? How can I build attraction if you're doing it for dating purposes? Or what can I talk about that allows me to build a connection and maybe network or make friendships? So the concept of cold approaching doesn't have to be just for the street. You can use it at work, you can use it in social environments, you name it. But starting off, this is where this first video comes in. So when I'm taking guys out and they say to me like, oh, I'm really scared to do that first approach, I always explain to them like, I want you to just burst the anxiety bubble. And they kind of look at me like, what do you mean burst the anxiety bubble? Well, when you put yourself in a very anxious situation, you sort of find that when you aren't really doing anything to challenge that anxiety or to just, you know, try and escape it really quickly, I find it almost feels a bit like a shield that goes around you, and you start kind of like closing in, and this like shield kind of gets tighter and tighter. And the more you don't do anything about breaking this shield or expanding it, the worse the situation gets. So imagine like if you've gone out, maybe this is you going out for your first time to go and practice just talking to a stranger. If you haven't yet got that experience to go and do it, then you are going to be just very scared to actually initiate the whole process. And then you're going to start getting in your head. You're going to start doubting, is this possible? You're going to start questioning all of your thoughts about like, oh, I can't speak to that woman because such and such, or like, oh, this is going to be impossible, or like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be good enough at this. You know, guys tend to get a little bit too overwhelmed with it. So I say to them, burst the anxiety bubble. I don't care what you do for that first approach. I don't care if it goes well. I don't care if you get rejected. I don't care what happens. But it's really important to just get that first one out the way, so you're no longer holding on to that anxiety of getting started. And I know it's easier said than done, especially if you're going out and doing it on your own. It's really not easy at all, which is why it is great to go out with someone, coach or friend or otherwise, just to at least do that first one. What I'm going to show you is a street demonstration. It's very short, unfortunately, for you at least anyway, of me walking around with my best friend Owen, and we were walking around for ages. Now, unfortunately, in the city that we were in, the volume and traffic of people really was not great. In like the 4 or 5 hours a day that we were doing, and we went out for an entire week, I think we were approaching each of us maybe about like 4 or 5 women a day. It was pathetic. It was so bad compared to London. It really wasn't the greatest. But there was a moment when we were walking around on the first day, and it must have been about like 20-30 minutes in, and I could start feeling that anxiety kicking in. I was like, I've really got to do an approach now, because I'm feeling it. I'm feeling that difficulty to just get started. And we were then walking through the shopping centre, and there was a woman who was walking by. She looked pretty okay. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to just burst the anxiety bubble and just do it. Because once I've at least got this first one out the way, my body is just going to relax, and then it's going to make it that bit easier to do the second approach, the third approach, and so on. So I'm not worrying about necessarily having like full-on conversation here, although I think in this first interaction, I did kind of like push the boundaries to what I would normally suggest to guys to be doing, which would be just kind of giving a compliment. So we're going to play it just so you can see it. Unfortunately, the start of it was just missed because it was so spontaneously quick. But all you're going to miss seeing on camera is me literally saying to my friend, as soon as I saw her, I said to him, I'm going to go talk to her. Fuck it, I'm going to go do it. I thought you looked absolutely amazing.
Huh?
I was literally just about to go up the escalator with my mate, and as you walked past coming down, I thought, fuck it, I've got to tell this girl that I just thought she looked great.
Oh, thank you.
What are you up to today? You just like shopping around then?
Yeah, I'm on my lunch break, so I'm going on holiday in 2 days, so I need to get last minute bits.
So one then, you got to be working in retail then?
No.
No, what do you do?
No. I'm really sorry, I have to go.
Okay,
I'm so sorry.
I thought I'd at least tell you anyway, so have a good day, okay? Okay, there you go. Now, I obviously just muted a little bit of personal information there, but all I did was kind of go up to her, just blurt out whatever it was on my mind. I mean, there's nothing smooth really what I'm saying in that video, but bear in mind when you're walking around for half an hour and you're getting a little bit antsy to speak to someone, as well as I was absolutely stressing out with my friend filming, and you don't see it in the next bit of the footage, but he was like touching the camera, and I was like, don't touch the camera before the security are going to come after you or come up to us whilst we're in a shopping centre. But all I wanted to do was just do it. It didn't really matter what I said. There was nothing smooth about it. There was nothing crazy or out there. It was really just to try and get that anxiety moment out the way, just to try and alleviate that stress and tension in my body. So then later on, the rest of my approaches will be more relaxed. I will be less anxious, and I'm going to then have much more proper conversations with women as I'm going about through the days. Now, again, didn't really get as much volume as we hoped for during the week, but it did make a difference later on. I at least got a number or two, and so did Owen as well. So this is just a really good, I think, concept to just consider. Like, you know, wherever you're at, whatever sort of skill you have. Again, whether you're new, whether you're doing it for a while, whatever. But the moment you leave your house, the moment you're trying to put yourself in an environment where you are actively choosing to work on your social skills, you have to consider, right, I can feel the anxiety. I need to burst the anxiety bubble. And however you do it is entirely up to you. I do think, though, doing the actual cold approaching side of it, actually going up to a stranger, telling them that they look great, giving them a compliment or something, is just a really good way to just burst that bubble. But there are other ways as well. You could do something that might be a little bit less stressful, of going into a shop and asking a question about something in the shop, or you could literally be going up to someone and asking for directions, which I'll also cover in the next part of this video or the next video. But just do something and be okay with however it goes. We're not looking for the perfect first approach of the day. All we're looking for is to just burst that anxiety bubble. And you know what? I felt so much different afterwards. You just feel your body go into that flow state. You just suddenly feel that anxiety again dissipate from you, and you feel grounded. And that's what you want. And in fact, the more people you speak to, the more volume that there is that you speak to, that dissipates even faster and you get to where you want to even quicker. Which then kind of really leads on to like another thought, that what can be a really great exercise, especially if you are warming up, is looking to approach people as quickly as possible in succession. So at least with that exercise of like, you speak to one person, give them a compliment, maybe like a minute or so later, you speak to someone else, you give them a compliment, and so on. You're actually training yourself to no longer get into your head and think about all those typical things that a guy would, that would create self-doubt or that would talk them out of doing another approach. So speak to someone, give them a compliment, walk down the street, wherever, ask someone for directions, you know, even time yourself, like how quickly can you do it? And maybe give yourself a mission of like trying to do like 5. But ultimately, the first few approaches are really just to break that anxiety bubble. Don't put too much stress or pressure on yourself that you've got to start getting phone numbers straight away. Those experiences are really going to be for the ones who have been practicing for a while, who are desensitized to speaking to strangers and have certainly had enough exposure therapy to no longer feel that fear, or maybe like a minimal amount of fear in truth, but they can just handle the pressure of the situation. They don't feel overwhelmed or anything. They can just deal with it. But for everyone else, you know, us mortals, you know, people who have normal jobs, who aren't walking around on the street and giving dating advice to other people who are watching their videos on YouTube, it's just really important to bear in mind, like, you've got to get rid of that anxiety first, and that's okay. Sometimes it might be after like 1 approach, sometimes it might be after like 10, but you've got to burst that anxiety bubble, and the more practice you get, the better you will be with it, and the faster you will burst that bubble as well. You might find the first time you go out, it might take 10 approaches until you get into flow state and you feel really grounded and happy to speak to people. And then maybe the next week it might be like 5, and then the week after it might be like 3. And then it may eventually get to a point like you only need to do 1 approach, and suddenly you're in the zone for it and you can do it. So burst the anxiety bubble. Let me say it again. Burst the anxiety bubble. Break it even. Be okay that when you start speaking to people, you're going to be nervous. There's nothing wrong with that. But you have to take the initiative. You have to do something, and be okay with whatever that experience looks like. The worst someone will do is probably ignore you or not hear you or say, no, that's, you know, not interested. That's going to be it. But you've got to at least be taking the initiative to speak to someone. And once you've done 1, then you've also proved to yourself that you can do it again and again and again. And you also show yourself that there's really nothing that bad about the situation, especially if you can do it in a respectful way as well. So I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for at least watching my first street demonstration. And stay tuned for the next video, where I'm going to just elaborate a little bit more on, once you've broken that anxiety bubble, what's kind of like the next step for like a real beginner. What would be the next thing that I would be suggesting for them to do?